time, people. George Floyd trial. Prosecution.
Your Honor, the state of Minnesota rests.
Thank you.
Done. Okay, so when the prosecution rests, that means we've put all the evidence that we have. We think we have proven our case beyond a reasonable doubt. We think the jury should convict based on our case, and we're done. So they just rested. Now the defense has an option. They can say, Your Honor, we don't have any witnesses to call. We also rest. And it would go to the jury right now. Normally, unless the prosecution did a really, really bad job, the defense doesn't do that. Or, if the defense doesn't have any witnesses, their client is guilty as shit and they don't want to put their client on, they'll say, Your Honor, based on the prosecution, we don't think they've proven their case. Therefore, we don't think we need to put a defense up, so we're also going to rest. And then they go to closing arguments. So I'm pretty sure the defense is going to put up their case.
The defense calls Scott Creighton.
Scott Creighton. Who is Scott? You notice he had to go out and get his witness because the prosecution, because they're spending taxpayer money, they got all these freaking people. The prosecution never had to go out and get their witness. Their witness was waiting. Somebody was out there saying, hey, you're going to be next. Stand by. As soon as he calls you, be ready to go come in. But the defense, they have to do all their own shit. Again, the deck is always stacked for the prosecution. That's why when you're on a jury, you need to be very critical of the government and what they did, and anything that they miss a step on, they need to be held accountable and to a higher standard.
Like perjury. The testimony you're about to give will be the truth and nothing but the truth. I'm in trouble getting the computer to work, and there's something I have to read the jury. But you
I wonder if this guy's a cop. Kind of looks like a cop. We'll see.
can be seated. All right. Hold on, let me try and...
Oh, did a sidebar already. Wow. That didn't take long. So what happens is the prosecution wants to disrupt and get him off his beat, especially if he gets in a roll. So I don't know who called the sidebar, but if you're called a sidebar before the witness even says his name, wow.
All right, let's have you give your first, middle, and last name and spell each of your names.
My name is Scott Robbie Creighton, C-R-E-I-G-H-T-O-N.
Members of the jury, you are about to hear evidence of an occurrence involving George Floyd on May 6th, 2019.
So this is what probably the sidebar was about, is they had a pre-approved agreement that they had to give some sort of admonishment or briefing to the jury about a pre-existing event or whatever. So we're going to tell what they agreed to on what the judge tells the jury.
This evidence is being admitted solely for the limited purpose of showing what effects the ingestion of opioids may or may not have had on the physical well-being of George Floyd. This evidence is not to be used as evidence of the character of George Floyd.
So we're giving them evidence, and they can only use this evidence to show what drugs will do, but it's not the character. So I'm thinking this video may be a previous George Floyd arrest, but we'll see.
Mr. Nelson.
Mr. Creighton, by whom are you currently employed?
Your Honor, is there any way that we can, I could hear it a little louder? Could it be a little louder? I'm having a difficult head. Sorry about that, sir.
No problem,
I just want to make sure I hear all the questions.
Is that better?
Yes, it is.
Okay. By whom are you currently employed?
Right now, I'm currently retired. I'm not employed by anybody.
Prior to your retirement, by whom were you employed?
The City of Minneapolis Police Department.
And how long did you work for the City of Minneapolis Police Department?
28 years.
Okay, so because he's retired, he gets to be honest. He doesn't have to worry about the agency, putting him in a shitty position, sticking him on night shift, screwing up his vacation, and harassing him because he's not towing the company line. He's retired. He's got his retirement. He can be honest. And I don't know if the juries understand that, but that's a big thing. Cops that are retired get to speak their mind because they're no longer under the thumb of the government.
Can you describe for the jury generally the various roles that you had for the Minneapolis Police Department?
Yes, I will. I started in 1993. I started on the street working as a 911 responder. I did 6 years as a 911 responder, and then I transferred over to public housing for approximately 9 months.
A 911 responder. I've never heard that term before. Does that mean he was a patrol cop?
Public housing officer, and then from there I went to the 4th Precinct and became a community response team member, involved as a street level narcotics.
He's not looking at the jury. So he may have not had a lot of time on a stand. He's kind of looking down and looking away, and sometimes the jurors will misinterpret that as he's not being honest because he's not looking at them.
Narcotics investigator. I did that for 22 years.
All right. Now, were you on duty on May 6th of 2019?
Yes, I was.
If you had an opportunity to review various police reports and body-worn cameras from an incident on that date?
Yes, I have.
On that date at approximately just before 5 o'clock p.m., did you execute a traffic stop of a red Ford Explorer?
Yes, I did.
And did you approach the passenger side?
Yes, I did.
Can you describe just very briefly the initial interaction that you had with the passenger of that vehicle?
I'm pretty sure this is the previous arrest of George Floyd where he got all excited, he started crying, etc. You can see the video. It's still up on YouTube. I'm surprised they haven't removed it because it doesn't fit their narrative.
Approached the vehicle on the passenger side. The passenger window was down. I started giving the individual that was in the passenger seat commands several times.
And I remember this cop doing this traffic stop because I just watched this video not too long ago. And he wasn't playing around with George Floyd. He didn't play that bullshit. He told him, put his damn hands, quit acting like crazy, keep your hands on there, I'm not going to shoot you, stop, knock it off, get out. I mean, he was pretty assertive, which I got no problem with. I thought he handled it pretty good.
The passenger was unresponsive and non-compliant to my commands. I then had to physically reach in because I wanted to see his hands because I couldn't see his hands. I reached in finally and grabbed his hand to put it up on the dash, and then that individual was taken from the vehicle and handcuffed.
Okay. Did you make any observations as to the passenger's behavior?
Could you repeat that question, sir? I'm sorry.
Did you make any additional observations as to the passenger's behavior?
Yeah, in my mind, his behavior was very nervous, anxious.
I will withdraw that question. In terms of, did you see the passenger do anything physically with his hands?
Yes, he turned away from me towards the driver's seat as continually as I was giving him commands to see his hands.
Did you draw your service weapon?
Yes, I did.
Did you observe the passenger put anything in his mouth?
Can you say that one more time, sir? I'm sorry.
Did you observe the passenger put anything in his mouth?
No, I didn't.
Did you were you wearing a body-worn camera issued by the city of Minneapolis on that day?
Yes, I was.
And have you had an opportunity to review your body-worn camera prior to today's testimony?
Yes, I have.
Your Honor, based upon the order, I would move to admit and publish Exhibit 1051.
Oh, they're going to play the video. Good.
1051 is received, subject to the motion of limine.
I just looked it up and I was going to slide it in here, but since they're going to play it,
Publish.
I'll slow it down for the video.
Can you undo your seatbelt, sir? Sir, passenger, can you undo your seatbelt?
The passenger is George Floyd, just so you know. They didn't make that clear. Maybe they're not allowed to say his name.
Go ahead and undo your seatbelt.
Please, I don't want to get shot.
I don't plan on shooting you. I'm just saying, just take your time.
I ain't never seen him.
Okay, relax. Just undo your seatbelt. Let her take care of her guy. Just keep your hands out where I can see him. Hey!
I'm just playing with him. I'm just playing.
Let me...
I thought you were playing. You serious?
Keep your hands where I can fucking see him!
Now the jury may immediately get turned off on this. I'm totally okay with it. Good for you. Don't fucking put up with bullshit when a guy's reaching around acting freaking crazy on a traffic stop.
Okay? Put him up on the dash. Put him on the dash.
Shoot me, sir. Please don't shoot me.
I'm not going to shoot you. Put your hands on the dash.
Okay.
Put your hands on the dash. The last time I'm going to...
See, he shows his gun out and he's got his hand on him. Look, George Floyd acts like a freaking freakazoid every time he gets, contacted by the cops.
tell you that. It's simple.
And why is that? because he always has drugs and he's trying to hide them and he knows he's going to go to jail and he knows that he's committing crimes. And so therefore he tries to act like I'm scared to distract and to slow down the officer till he finds the opportunity to either eat his drugs, throw it out on the road, or do something with it. They find drugs in the car, by the way. I don't know if they'll show it.
He keeps moving his hands around. He won't listen to what I have to say.
There you go, right there. All right,
Okay.
Top of your head. Why y'all doing this?
Put him on your head.
Top of your head. Okay, man.
Open your mouth. Spit out what you got.
So the other officer saw him put something in his mouth. And again, this fearful, oh my God, I'm sorry, please don't shoot me, blah, blah, blah. It's all bullshit. And cops on the road, when you get more experience, realize that.
Spit out what you got. I'm going to tase you. Spit it out. He's eating all
Don't you jerk away from me.
That was one yellow pill.
Put your hands behind your
That was one yellow pill, boss.
Who thinks 3 women would have got George Floyd out?
Okay, now slowly come on out.
Damn, man.
Hand under put your hand under your head. Okay, relax then. You're not going to get beat up or nothing if you just follow what we're asking you to do.
I apologize for it, man. I apologize, man.
So that's why they said you can't judge George Floyd's character. Even though he was committing crimes and getting arrested previously and still acted like an idiot previously, let's not judge his character. Let's bring in his brother and his mother, and let's bring in his girlfriend and judge his character on all the good things they said, but you can't judge it on this. That's why courts and juries make bad decisions, and that's why courts hide most of the evidence from a jury.
I apologize.
Yeah.
Oh, somebody said a sidebar already. Again, when they're doing this sidebar crap, the jury is like, wow, I wonder what's going on. I wonder why the defense is doing that. Oh, he must have done something wrong because the prosecution is going to tell the judge. These little freaking sidebar things always are a lot of times, not always, a lot of times for the benefit of the jury to confuse them or to make them think, oh, something must be going on. Something's afoot. Oh, he's trying to pull a slick one. He got caught doing something he shouldn't, etc.
Did you subsequently identify the driver of the, or excuse me,
Not
passenger?
the passenger, yeah.
Yes, I did.
And who is that?
Mr. Floyd.
Your Honor, based on the court's ruling, I have no further questions for this witness.
Ah, you see how he slipped that in? How many of y'all caught that? Based on the court's ruling, I have no further questions. That means I wanted to ask him more questions and give the juror more information, but I'm not allowed to. When jurors hear shit like that, I don't know if they're smart enough to figure out that they're being lied to and shit's being hidden and the cases. Man, I hate that. I did not want the DA telling me, don't answer that and don't bring this up. And if he goes there, whatever. The truth is the truth. I don't give a shit if you win or lose. The facts are the facts. But DAs don't like that and courts don't like it. So they let him come in for the limited thing to say his behavior, and now you can't ask him anything else. Because the prosecution, the government, doesn't want anything allowed that hurts their chance of winning. Remember, our courts are not about the truth or justice. It's about winning, losing, and, promotion of the courts. It's just bullshit.
Cross-examination.
Prosecution may be stupid to ask him questions. If I was prosecution, I'd just get him out of there. He's not a friendly witness. He's probably not going to say anything to help me. Why do I want to ask him questions? But maybe he comes up with a good question.
Good morning, Officer Creighton.
Good morning.
Oh
You
my
testified
God, not
that
her. Oh shit. Freaking chicken on crack. She'll be looking around, fiddling her papers, won't be looking at his answer, thinking 4 questions ahead.
The officer who approached the passenger side of the vehicle, you approached George Floyd on May 6th of 2019, is that right?
That's correct, yes.
And you had your gun drawn when you approached Mr. Floyd, isn't that right?
Yes, I pulled it, yes.
And when you
That was a different answer. The cop should have said, I did not have my gun drawn when I approached. I drew my gun because of Mr. Floyd's inappropriate actions and his quick movements, and it appeared that he was either hiding evidence, reaching for guns or drunks, and his behavior caused me to draw my gun. That's what he should have said. Bad answer.
You approached Mr. Floyd. He said, "Don't shoot me, man. I don't want to get shot," right?
Something like that, yes.
You told him to undo his seatbelt, correct?
That's correct, yes, ma'am.
And he did that, right?
Yes, he did.
And then you said, "Put your hands where I can see them," correct?
Yes.
And then he put his hands in the air.
Yes,
And then you told him to put his hands on the dash. Is that right?
that's correct.
And that was when you grabbed his hand and forcibly put it on the dashboard of the vehicle, correct?
Oh, you grabbed him, you mean white person. You hate black people. All right, here we go.
Oh, and yes.
And then the other officer with you on the other side of the vehicle changed that to put your hands on your head, correct?
That's correct.
And then he put his hands on his head, right?
That's correct, yes.
And there was one officer who said that they were going to tase him, right?
That's what I heard, yes.
And you were yelling pretty loud, correct?
Yes, I was, yes. It escalated real quick.
Some profanity as well, correct?
Yes.
And you had
Profanity, you were yelling. He said it escalated very quick. See, this woman is what I call rapid firing questions that he can answer yes or no, and she's tricking him into being a bad witness, and this guy isn't slowing down and messing with her. When she asks a question, you know, you did this right, and she wants a yes or no answer, say, I did do that, and the reason was, and you elaborate a little bit, unless the court tells you, hey, non-responsive, shut up. Answer it yes or no. Now, they can do that, and sometimes they will tell you to do that, but you try to get out the information because she's going to make it seem like he was worried because he was a black man. He was treated different. And you saw, I guarantee you in the closing, they'll be saying, you saw how another officer treated poor Mr. Floyd on a traffic stop. He was trying to comply, and the officer cussed at him, threatened to tase him, and he was trying to comply. They won't say he was eating drugs. He was arrested because he had drugs. He was lying to him and all that other shit. It's crap like this where they trick the jury is just so bullshit.
You had your gun drawn the whole time you were giving commands, right?
Once I started ordering him and he refused to show me his hands, yes, eventually it escalated where I pulled my gun, yes, ma'am.
Finally, he got it out. I don't think he got it out that good. I'm going to slow this down just because she's rapid firing, and I kind of want to hear, I want you guys to hear the pace of this.
And he was awake, correct?
What's that, ma'am?
Mr. Floyd was awake. Was he awake during this incident?
Yes.
Are you a freaking idiot? Did you not see the video? Of course he was awake. Wow, that was a very important question. I'm an attorney. I went to law school because I had to figure out how to ask these questions. Really?
He was conscious.
Yes.
He didn't appear to be in medical distress to you when you were pulling him out of the car, is that right? He was talking to you.
See, she changed the answer. See, the defense should objection, Your Honor. She asked a question, didn't allow it. She either has to withdraw the first question and re-ask it, or she's got to give him a chance to answer it. And she didn't. She pulled a slick DA quick trick. If I don't get the answer I want, I'm going to rephrase the question real quick. And if the defense doesn't catch it, I'm going to change to the question to get the answer I want. Did y'all see that? I'm going to go back.
Is that right?
Yes.
He didn't appear to be in medical distress to you when you were pulling him out of the car, is that right? He was talking to you. He was standing up, is that right?
I don't know if it was specifically, sometimes he was talking, sometimes he was mumbling. He was incoherent in my mind a lot of the time during there.
But you got him out of the car and you handcuffed him, right?
That's correct, ma'am.
And he stood next to the car, right?
Yes, ma'am.
He asked you not to beat him up, correct?
That's correct, yes.
He was able to walk, right?
Yes, he was.
He continued to talk to you.
Yes.
Oh my God, these questions are freaking ridiculous. So they went for a sidebar. I mean, he's probably like, look, she's going way out of the scope on what I asked him. She's just going over exactly what happened and she's highlighting different ends. She saw the video. The jury saw the video. Why is she going over this to ask him all these questions and wasting everybody's time? I mean, that may be why the sidebar. I don't know.
Ms. Aldridge, if you would.
Thank you, Your Honor. Officer Creighton, you were describing that
This woman has a very, either her hair is always in her face, and I've noticed this every time she asks questions, she rubs her right hand over the left side of her face by her mouth. Always. Which to me is a subliminal that she's lying and she's trying to put her hand. Remember when people talk? If they put their hands by their mouth or their ears or their eyes, it's a subliminal message that they're either lying or not being truthful. She has a very bad habit of rubbing her face right here. And I've seen it every time she testifies.
Thank you, Your Honor. Officer Creighton, you were describing that you got Mr. Floyd out of the car, correct?
Yes.
And he stood next to the car and
Actually, he wasn't describing anything. You're making statements and having him agree with you. You're not even really asking questions. You're making statements and having him agree with you.
you handcuffed him, correct?
Me and another officer had to physically handcuff him, yes.
And he didn't fall down, correct?
No, he didn't fall down.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Anything further?
Okay, so the point of her questions were that the two incidents were different. The officer should have known that poor Floyd in this event was under medical distress because he fell down. He didn't fall down. He sat down because he didn't want to get in the truck and he was obstructing the officers from putting him in the police car. So he didn't fall down. She misstated that, but that was the subliminal to the jury. He was in medical distress. Remember, he couldn't walk. He fell down. He didn't want to get in the car. He fell down when they pulled him out. He was on his knees. That's where I think she was trying to make this point. Again, smoke and mirrors.
Officer Creighton, there was another officer on the driver's side dealing with the driver,
Yes, that's correct, actually, two.
and that officer was speaking to or giving commands to the driver
That's correct.
simultaneous to the time that you were giving commands to Mr. Floyd.
That's correct.
Did you hear the officer say, "Spit it out"?
I may have, yes. You have to see the video, and if that's what the video shows, then that's what occurred.
Okay. I have no further questions.
Anything further?
Now, because he asked him questions, now the prosecution gets another bite at him if they want it. So now she gets to come back and make her points again. That's why sometimes asking that second question instead of getting rid of the witness is a bad move. We'll see if she makes... Sometimes it works out in your favor because they get up there and look at it. Maybe she'll look more like an idiot. We'll see.
Officer Creighton, you were just asking questions about what the other officers were doing. You were interacting with Mr. Floyd, correct?
Yes.
And while you were interacting with Mr. Floyd, he didn't collapse on the ground, correct?
Wait a minute. What was the question? Can you speak up a little louder, ma'am?
While you were interacting with Mr. Floyd, he didn't collapse on the ground, correct?
No, he did not.
Well, the answer is stricken. The objection is sustained.
Oh, objection sustained. I wonder if his objection was asked and answered. Because all she's doing is repeating her shit. Again, sometimes when you give them a second bite, now she gets up there and she gets to try and make her point that she wanted to make on the first one. Even though I think she's freaking a horrible DA.
You were asking questions about what the other officers were doing, correct?
That's correct.
Your attention was focused on Mr. Floyd, correct?
Yes, it was.
And Mr. Floyd didn't drop dead while you were interacting with him, correct?
No.
Thank you. Nothing further.
Anything further?
Didn't drop dead. Mr. Floyd didn't drop dead. Oh, did he drop dead? Or did the knee kill him? I would probably come back. But I don't know how I would do that. But she just said he dropped dead. She didn't say the knee killed him.
Thank you. You may step down.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay, so he's done. Normally the defense tends to roll a little bit better. You notice the prosecution asks more
Thank you, Your
questions
Honor.
on
Your
his
Honor, this time
witnesses.
the defense calls Michelle Mosing.
Michelle. Let's see what Michelle has to say.
And before you begin,
Michelle has a pink
please
mask.
state your full name, spell each of your names, and then hold off, Mr. Nelson. Just give your full name and spell each name.
First name is Michelle, Michelle.
If that would make it easier to hear you, that would be appreciated. Members of the jury, this again is regarding an incident or an occurrence involving George Floyd on May 6, 2019. As I told you before, this evidence is being admitted solely for the limited purpose.
Now see, this is, again, kind of bullshit. They made an agreement that they want to do it. Now the judge has to give them a warning because the prosecution said, oh, we want them warned. Remember when the prosecution said, we don't want Hall to get on the stand and take the fifth? Remember that? Because it would prejudice the jury. Now the prosecution gets to say, if we allow this witness, judge, you've got to give the jury an admonishment on what this is, or so they don't confuse it. So every witness so far, they only called 2, and both of them have had to been qualified from the judge, which takes away from their credibility or what they're talking about. Again, the deck is stacked against the defense. That's why when you get a unanimous verdict, normally the prosecution you would think, put on a good case and the guy's guilty. But that's why we have innocent people going to jail. Because in the system, there's a lot of cogs, either officers that don't care, either experts that the prosecution hired that are lying. How many experts did we see that were flat out just biased and lying? So that's why innocent people end up going to jail.
Of showing what effects the ingestion of opioids may or may not have had on the physical well-being of George Floyd. This evidence is not to be used as evidence of the character of George Floyd. Mr. Nelson, you may inquire.
Thank you. Good morning, ma'am.
Morning.
By whom are you currently employed?
I am retired.
Okay. Prior to your retirement, where were you employed?
I was
Another person retired. We call that a clue. Nobody who's still working is willing to testify and go against the narrative. Only people who are retired that don't have to face the fallout of speaking the truth. That should be in a jury's mind.
paramedic at Hennepin County Medical Center, EMS.
How long were you a paramedic for Hennepin County?
Just under 34 years.
Okay. And can you describe the education that you have to become a paramedic?
I have a 2-year degree in emergency medical care and rescue from Mankato State University.
Or did you have other employment?
Hennepin.
And you may not remember every specific detail about every call, correct?
No.
And as a paramedic, do you maintain records about each call that you go to in order to assess the patient's care?
Yes, we do a run sheet or a patient medical record that we hand off at the emergency room.
Now,
Sorry.
prior to your testimony today, have you had an opportunity to review a run sheet from May 6th of 2019 involving George Perry Floyd?
Yes.
Do you recall all of those details off the top of your head now?
No.
All right. Now, in terms of your recollection of May 6th of 2019, were you summoned to the Minneapolis Police Department
Yes, precinct 4.
to attend to Mr. Floyd?
Yes.
Upon arriving at the 4th precinct, did you talk to Mr. Floyd?
Yes.
Did you learn information from Mr. Floyd about what he had consumed and the time frame he had consumed it in?
Yeah, it was quite hard to assess him. He was upset and confused. Some of the things he said were...
I'm going to straighten this response. If you could
Perhaps leave.
Certainly. Did Mr. Floyd, were you able to learn that Mr. Floyd had consumed some narcotics that day?
Yes.
What did he tell you specifically about what narcotics he had taken and when he had taken them?
He told me that he had been taking multiple, like every 20 minutes. And it was a... I don't remember if it was Oxy or Percocet, but it was a opioid based. It wasn't real consistent with his behavior. At that point, it was real elevated and agitated.
No, I'm gonna.
The last statement about education is stricken as non-responsive. You can just wait for the next question.
Thank you.
Yeah, you can't say he was agitated because then they might see that he was always this way and he was always taking drugs, and every time he takes drugs, he acts that way. And we don't want the jury to think that.
He informed you he had taken some sort of an opioid every 20 minutes or something like that, correct?
And then another one as the officer came up.
Okay, so he told you that he had taken a pill at the time the officers were apprehending him.
Correct.
Did you do a physical assessment of Mr. Floyd at that time?
Yes.
Specifically, did you take his blood pressure?
Yes, I took a set of vitals.
Would you agree that your first vitals were taken at approximately 1:34 and 59 seconds?
Without looking at the run sheet, I wouldn't know for sure.
Would it refresh your recollection to review the run sheet?
Yes.
May I approach the witness room?
Thank you.
Man, this girl's so soft-spoken. I don't know how she was a paramedic. What'd she do when she pulled up on scene? Excuse me.
And written on here that it was 1334 was the first recorded vital signs.
That refreshes your recollection?
Yes. Did you know?
See, they're going to object that she's reading. How many times did his witnesses do that, and the defense didn't object?
Back.
I'd like to testify from memory.
If you need to refresh your memory with that, just let us know and we'll allow you to refresh your memory. But otherwise, testify your memory as best we can.
Okay.
Thank you.
Again, this shakes up the witness. This is like, oh my, I did something wrong. I'm sorry, I didn't know. Again, you notice the prosecution has freaking not let him put one witness on without freaking just attacking and going, and you got to get a Man, this trial is so stacked. It's crazy.
At approximately 13:34, that's 1:34 p.m. Agreed. You took his vitals, correct?
Correct.
And that would include his blood pressure at the time?
Yes.
And did you record what his blood pressure was at that time?
Yes, it was 216 over 160.
Did you ultimately make recommendations to transport Mr. Floyd to the hospital?
Based on that and other issues,
Okay. And ultimately, was he brought to the hospital?
eventually.
All right. I believe that's all I have, Your Honor.
It's over.
He was limited on this witness. Why wouldn't he explore? What else did he tell you? What other drugs was he on? What happened at the hospital? See, he was limited, and the jury will not know this if they're not cops or not in the courts, and they get shit hidden from them. And unless you understand how all this is going on behind the scenes, that's why jurors give bad verdicts. Oh my God, they got the freaking wigged out chicken on crack questioning.
Good morning, Ms. Mozang.
Good morning.
You provided treatment to George Floyd on May 6, 2019, correct?
Correct.
So-
Yes.
And you were concerned about his blood pressure at that time, correct?
That was one of the things.
And
Notice how she freaking just is rude. She's just getting her questions. She's looking at the ground. She's working ahead. She's not looking at the witness. She's not waiting for their answer. She is just reading a script and letting the witness kind of confirm what she's reading.
in the course of your treatment of him, he explained that his high blood pressure wasn't something new, right?
Initially, he denied medical issues, but then when I discovered his blood pressure, I specifically asked again, and he said yes, he had a history of hypertension and had not been taking his medication.
And he said he hadn't been taking his blood pressure medication for months, correct?
Correct.
And he told you that he swallowed some pills.
I thought she said he had not. Let me play that again. I thought she said had not been taking his meds.
His medication.
And he said
yes, he had a history of hypertension and had not been taking his medication.
Had not. Didn't the DA say he had been taking it for months?
And he said he hadn't been taking his blood pressure medication for months, correct?
Correct.
And he told you that he swallowed some pills, right?
Yes.
Approximately 7 Percocet, correct?
See, she's supposed to ask to refer notes so they can tell them it's kind of procedural, it's kind of bullshit. Just give them to them, let them refresh recollection, but you can't do that. Technically, she's supposed to say, I don't remember, can I refer to the report to refresh my recollection? It's kind of court wumbo jumbo bullshit.
I documented, 7 to 9 every 20 minutes or so for a while.
And Percocet is a brand name, right?
Yes.
Is that oxycodone and acetaminophen?
Yes.
And it's used to treat pain, correct?
Correct.
You testified that it's an opioid, yes?
Correct.
So he told you that he had been taking those pills throughout the day, right?
Yes, and I asked him why. He said it's because he was addicted.
He told you he was
Oh, way to slick. Now see, she wasn't trying to slick that in. Me, I would have been trying to slick that in and slide it in without him knowing it. She didn't. She was just being honest. And the DA was like, shit, I didn't really want that coming in, that he said he was addicted.
and he responded to your questions about taking the pills, correct?
Correct.
And he was able to walk, correct?
Yes.
Oh
He was
my
able to
God.
stand up.
Correct.
And you wanted him to go to the hospital, right?
Correct.
And he didn't feel like he wanted to go to the hospital, correct? He was resistant to going to the hospital, right?
I know he was real resistant to get on our bed. It was hard to tell exactly what he was upset about.
I'm going to object at this point.
I'm
Your
sorry.
Honor.
Oh, good for her. So she objected to her own answer to the question. The defense should say, Your Honor, she asked the question and the witness answered it. What she's objecting to. She opened the door for the answer.
Just with respect to going to the hospital, Your Honor.
Yes.
I'm going to limit your question to the question I asked to that. He didn't want to go to the hospital, right?
Ask and answered. She already answered that. She just didn't give you the answer you wanted.
I'll say yes.
It took some time to convince him to go to the hospital,
Yes.
correct? And you indicated that he told you he had been addicted to opioids, correct?
Correct.
And he had been addicted to opioids at that point for 1.5 years, right?
I am not aware of that.
But he didn't feel like he needed to go to the hospital.
Notice she's just looking down and checking papers and she is the rudest, most horrible DA. I mean, I've seen some bad DAs, but she is horrible.
He didn't want to go with us at that point.
And you were referred to your RUN report, right? The record that you keep in terms of the treatment of patients. You see that up there, correct?
Yes.
And according to your RUN report, you documented that Mr. Floyd was alert, correct?
Yes.
And that he obeyed commands, correct?
Eventually.
That's what's in your report, right?
Eventually, she just skipped over that. Now see, the defense can come back and go, when you said he eventually complied with commands, what did you mean? That's what he should be answering. Every question that she asked, he gets a chance to come up and respond to her questions or to re-ask or to clear them up. So I hope he does that. A lot of times they'll feel bad for the witness and say, oh man, she's kind of getting beat up. Let's just let her off stand. I don't want to put her through more shit. But this guy's fighting for his client not to go to prison for the rest of his life.
Correct?
Correct.
And that he had an appropriate response to stimulation.
Correct.
Yes?
Correct.
He wasn't nauseous or vomiting when you were treating him, right?
No.
She's answering her own questions, every one,
His respiratory rate was normal.
right?
Yes?
It was elevated at times.
You wrote respiratory effort normal in your report, correct?
At the beginning, yes. His effort was normal. It was increased at times.
And throughout your documentation, you wrote respiratory effort normal, correct?
Correct.
at 1334, at 1409.
See, I think the prosecution loses credibility when they're attacking a witness. This witness doesn't hurt their case that much. She was a paramedic and she responded to a medical issue. And now they're attacking her and trying to make it about, you wrote this, so you're not being truthful, or you're not doing it. I mean, it almost looks like they're freaking desperate, which they should be, because this is a sham of a case.
At 1426, all those notes you indicated that his respiratory effort was normal, correct?
Correct.
He was not in respiratory distress, correct?
No.
His blood oxygen level was normal, right?
Correct.
His pulse was normal, correct?
Yes.
His heart rhythm was regular or normal, right?
But his behavior was abnormal. Shocking.
Right?
Correct.
His EKG was normal.
Correct.
He had a normal rhythm, the sinus rhythm, which is the rhythm of a normal, healthy heart, correct?
Correct.
And you indicated that you had been worried about high blood pressure for the possibility of a stroke, right?
Among other things, yes.
But he didn't have a stroke, right?
Didn't have any indications that we were picking up at the time.
He didn't have a stroke while you were with him.
No.
He was never given Narcan, correct?
Correct.
He didn't stop breathing.
No.
His heart didn't stop.
No.
He didn't go into cardiac arrest.
No.
He didn't go into a coma.
Oh my
And you
God.
took him to the hospital, correct?
Correct.
And he was monitored for 2 hours and released right after, right?
I don't know.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
What a rude, just pathetic DA. Oh, she's rude, abrupt, oh man.
Thank you. You may step down.
Oh, he didn't come back and question her. Wow, I can't believe that. See, I think he has a missed opportunity here.
Sure.
Okay, so we're going to end this now on this one, and we'll be back on the next witness.